Alright, so admins have been nerfed, laser corps have been nerfed, hackers have been nerfed, and Vex has been nerfed. I think it's time to start looking for a new top tier comp. In today's video, I want to talk about one of my absolute favorite comps of the new set, not only because it's very solid, but also because it's a lot of fun, honestly. The comp I'm talking about is, of course, Spellslingers Hogforce. In case you can read, you might already guessed it. And in this video, we'll be going over what core units to run, the best items on your units, what best augments to pick, and the best boards you want to play from early to late game. Let's go. Alright, so these are the core units, top to bottom. TF is my favorite carry for this comp. I think he's stronger, I think he's more fun. Usually I want to run him if I can. But in case you don't find him or you don't find his items but have a good Spellslingers opener, by all means, just play Nico. It's fine. You're not gonna bot for it just because you have Nico instead of TF. If you don't find TF and have Nikos, by all means just play Nico. For tanks, your main tanks are gonna be Echo and Annie. You want to stack your items on one of the two. Definitely don't spread your items, but it's not really relevant which of the two you wanna stack your items on. If you can find an Annie in the early game, that would be ideal. You're probably gonna have your items on her early on, so there's not gonna be any need to remake Annie or just move her items away. It's fine. She can definitely tank the enemy team on her own. Other units that are generally useful because of their traits or because they're just good in the comp. Sona synergizes as well, both with Spellslingers and in general with Oxforce, thanks to Viego, because Viego now is a heart unit, in case you missed it. That's a thing. And she's just a really good support unit for AP comps in general, because she's got healing, she's got stun, she's got pretty good damage actually, and brings a lot of utility to the board. Alistar, as we already seen in set 8, he's a very good secondary frontline for AP comps. He's got Oxforce, synergizes as well with Annie, synergizes as well with Echo, giving you Aegis. And yeah, you got some extra healing from him too, and he's a mid shield as well, so definitely a good unit that you want to have in your team, especially if you're running Oxforce. Lastly, you want to pick one between Fiora and Nila. Usually you're gonna run Fiora if you're running 4 Oxforce, because she gives your TF duelist 2, and it helps you get Oxforce 4, because there's only 4 units that have the Oxforce trait without using an emblem, so you're gonna need her in case you want to run 4 Oxforce as your main frontline. If you're running Nico, you're probably gonna default to Nila, because Nico really synergizes a lot better with 4-star Guardians instead of 4 Oxforce. You can cut Viego and Fiora for 2 Spellslingers that are usually gonna be Nila and probably Syndra when you can find her at level 8, level 9. You still have Echo, which is a very strong frontline, and he can work even without Oxforce. You're just gonna be a little less tanky. That's all. In this video, we're gonna cover mainly the 4 Oxforce, 4 Spellslinger, 2 Duelist variation. I can't cover both because it would take a little too long. I don't think it's necessary, honestly. It's just really straightforward. Just build your items for Nico. Usually she wants Shojin, JG, and Giant Slayer. Anything that can stack her, that can synergize off of her AP gotten from Spellslingers, and just a mana item, and you're fine. Alright, so let's talk items. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's go step by step. Let's start with the carry items. The only real core item you want on your Twisted Fate is probably Static Shiv, because since he wants to attack a lot to scale damage on his spell, in case you didn't know, he gains more damage on his spell based on how many times he attacks after casting. He's dealing AP damage, so definitely Static is the first item that comes to mind. It gets you good chip damage on the enemy board. It helps you shred the magic resistance of the enemy frontline. And it's also generally pretty good in an AP comp. Even though the enemy has no MR, you're still gonna deal more damage. And it synergizes as well with his kit. So it's the only real core item you want. Second item can be a little more flexible. It's gonna be a damage item. And if you're not running 4 or 6 duelists, chances are you're gonna need a Ginsu because your TF will not have a lot of attack speed. Ginsu really helps deal a lot more damage with his spell. It synergizes well with Static Shiv itself, getting you more procs in the long run. Generally speaking, it's a good fit for his kit. But in case you find yourself playing TF in Vertical Duelist, which is definitely a comp you can play, it's not going to be on par with this one, I think. It's a little underwhelming right now. But if you feel like pivoting to Duelist because your early game is better for Duelist, or you found, I don't know, a Mila, Augment, something like that. I have no idea. Maybe you have Duelist +1. You might want to drop Ginsu because you already have enough attack speed. And you might want to build an AP item like Rabadon, or maybe Guardbreaker even. In case you don't find a Ginsu and you really need to slam some items, you can just go for Giant Slayer. It's still going to give you some attack speed, although it's not going to be on the same level. But the percentage increase of your damage given from Giant Slayer is gonna scale pretty well with the bonus AP that TF gets from Spellslingers. So it's still a pretty good choice. Third item wants to be a healing item. Gunblade or Hodge are your only options. Unfortunately, you can't build a Bloodthirster on an AP carry. I mean, you can. It's not gonna be as good. So I'd really advise picking between Gunblade and Hodge. In case you find a Celestial Blessing 3 especially, but even 2 can work, you might consider dropping your healing item in favor of a third damage item. In that case, just refer to the second item. Options is gonna be the same. Now, tank items are a little different. There's no core items specifically. Most of the tank items in this set are pretty good and can go on any tank. Of course, some synergize better than others with different units, but we'll see about that. So I decided to divide them by tier rather than core and second and third item because I feel like it fits better. So S tier items that you want to build in your tanks: Ionic Spark is top of the list. Definitely a very good option for any AP team. It's good on any for sure. But it's even better on Echo because it's gonna dive on the enemy backline, spreading the magic resistance reduction to your more units, and also proccing more of the Ionic Spark's damage on more units, which is gonna help you get rid of the enemy carries. Sunfire Cape, definitely one of the most overused items for frontline units in the history of TFT. Not only it gives you a good advantage in the early game, if you can build a Sunfire, you're pretty much guaranteed a win streak as long as you have some 2-star units. It's also very good because healing is pretty big on TFT. Most hyper carries are gonna run a healing item. So having Sunfire to cut that down and reduce the survivability of the enemy board is gonna do a lot towards just killing all of the enemy units. Of course, that's the goal of the game after all. So yeah, those are the S tier items. Now for A tier, before we get into that, there's 2 items that I'd consider A+, depending on who you put them on. And the first one is Warmog. Warmog just gives you raw HP, which is generally good, but if you put it on Annie, which is an Oxforce unit, and you're running 4 Oxforce, you're gonna get more effective HP due to the fact that having more resistances, getting through 1000 HP is gonna be harder than on a unit like Echo, who has innately less resistances than an Oxforce unit with Oxforce 4 online. So Warmog is definitely an A+ item to build on any. Gargoyle, on the other hand, is way better on Echo than it is on any, because since you're running 4 Oxforce usually, you're still gonna have like a pretty good frontline. You don't really need a hyper tank like it would be Annie in the last set. Usually you would just put her in the front with a Gargoyle and be like, go absorb all the damage you can, bless you. You're definitely gonna have your meat shields ready to save your backline. But since Echo has a taunt built in his kit, Gargoyle is gonna give him way more resistance than it would on Annie. Next, Redemption. Now we're in full A tier territory. Redemption, pretty solid option. Gives you some HP, scales well with the extra resistance from Ox-Force. Reduces the AoE damage taken from Vex, for example, or Draven, or enemy Nikos, or enemy TF, because TF is also has some pretty good AoE damage. Overall, a pretty good, solid pick in general. Protector's Vow gives you a lot of starting mana, good resistances, and it's got a shield built in. Be careful if the enemy has a guard breaker, it might not be the best option, but in all other cases, it helps your tank cast faster and therefore probably tank better, since most tanks have spells that help them tank, of course. Like an early taunt from Echo might save your units, an early taunt from Annie might save herself and save you some HP. Zizirot is a decent option in general, especially if you're running a Gargoyle on Echo. It's gonna taunt and you're gonna get extra resistances. And the biggest part about Zizirot is that even after your main tank dies, you're still gonna buy some time with the Voidling that spawns off of it. Last but not least, Declaw and Bramble Vest, both very solid options. Declaw is obviously better against AP comps, just like Bramble is gonna be better against AD comps. Duh. And yeah, they're just very solid in case you need extra MR or extra armor. You just pick one of the two. Bramble can also be useful against crit heavy carries because it negates most of the damage incoming from those. Declaw just gives you extra regen. It's just generally pretty good. Now, the only tank item that I personally don't like is Titan's Resolve, because the units that can use Titan's Resolve the best are the ones that usually want to deal a lot of damage while also being in the middle of the fight. Like, you know, close range, fucking punching the enemy in the nose, right? Like Warwick doesn't exactly punch the enemy. I don't know. So since damage doesn't really matter on your front line, this item is a little underwhelming in the resistances part, because of course it has to be balanced around the fact that it gives you also some damage stats, and since those are useless on your tanks, you really don't want a subpar item. Just get a Gargoyle at the point. It's gonna give you way more resistances. Even Protector's Vow is probably gonna give you more and more resistances than Protectors and then Titan's Resolve. Now, do you see the Nila that's been sitting on the top right corner for a while now? I wanted to have a little postscriptum about her. In case you're rolling 6 duelists, Ionic is still pretty good for AP. Sunfire is generally a good item for tanks in every comp. But since duelists don't have a real front line and most of them are gonna be in the fight and probably gonna die because they're not frontliners, Locket is extremely valuable on Nila in 6 duelists. Alright? Remember that. Oh. Hey, I'm down here. I didn't fit in the screen. So, let's talk augments. Specifically, I want to go tier by tier because, of course, if you have to choose between 3 different augments, there's always going to be the same rarity, most likely, except for hero augments. But that's a different story. So, let's start from the silver augments. We got Spellslinger Heart, of course. It could help you get 6 Spellslingers at level 9, or just like get 4 Spellslingers online earlier in the game. That is a pretty good solid spike. It's 25 AP on 3 different units. It's pretty good. Then we have Item Grab Bag 1, which, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea why it's performing so well with this campaign in particular. It might just be that it's a generally decent augment. I've never paid much thought about it, but apparently stats wise, it's one of the best tier 1 augments on this comp. So if you want to try it and see how it goes, definitely check it out. Stats usually don't lie. And also, if you have an explanation, please let me know in the comments, because I have no fucking clue. And I want to learn. But anyway, next augment, Pandora's box or Pandora's item. I don't remember. Anyway, it's just a good augment in case you're not getting the right components that you wanted or that you needed. For example, TF relies a lot on bows and rods for Gunblade, for example, or Tears for static, for Hand of Justice in case you need it, for Ginsu. And if you're lacking those components, or you have too many attacking components and you're lacking some, you know, some resistances, some beef on the front line, you can just reroll your undesired components with Pandora's item. Is one of my all-time favorite tier 1 augments for sure. Now, next row, in case you noticed, it's all healing augments, because Twisted Fate is gonna benefit a lot from healing, from sustain, to help him stay alive. So Thrill of the Hunt and Celestial Blessing are both pretty decent on this comp. And the third augment, Second Wind, is a little different, because Second Wind in general is more catered towards healing the front line, not the back line, because it procs pretty early in the fight, and if you position correctly, your backline should be relatively safe until this bad boy goes off. Or bad girl, but bad augment? No, it's not a bad augment. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, Second Wind synergizes really well with Oxforce units, for the same reason why Warmog is better on Annie than Echo, because it's more effective HP, because Oxforce units have more resistances. So 100 HP or whatever that is on an Oxforce unit is more than the same amount of HP on a non-Oxforce unit, because you're gonna have less resistances. Unless you stock resistances on them with Declaw and Bramble, then by all means just put Warmog on them, but I digress. Last tier 1 augment, Loden's Echo, pretty solid. Loden's Echo 1 is not gonna be game-changing, but you're already casting a lot. Might as well just deal that little bit of extra damage. It might help you, it might not. Better than Tiny Titans, most likely. Alright, no, there are some spots Tiny Titans can be played, but I just generally don't like it. Anyway, gold augments. The single absolute best, most broken augment for this comp, Jewel Lotus. It lets all of your units crit with their spells, and since they're all gonna be mages, it's gonna be a lot of damage. The Lotus is actually pretty strong in general right now. There's people who pick it even out of AP comps, just in general, because it's very strong. It gives you extra crit chance, I think I remember correctly. Let me just double check real quick. I don't want to be giving false information on the internet. So yeah, your units gain 20% crit strike chance, and your abilities can crit. So it's just a very solid augment, especially since your units are all gonna be AP. Next two augments I want to talk about together, Spellslinger Emblem and Oxforce Emblem. Same reason why Spellslinger Heart is good. This can help you get your traits running a lot faster than usual. But compared to Heart, Spellslinger Heart, these two emblems give you actual stats on actual units. So if you want to run Misfortune Spellslinger for whatever reason, just because she popped up in your shop, or maybe you want to run more realistically, probably Aurelion Soul, because you couldn't build a Sunfire and you need an anti-heal, or just because ASOL is generally a decent unit as a placeholder for AP comps, you can just slap the Spellslinger emblem on him. He's gonna get 50 AP and you're gonna be very happy. Same thing with Oxforce Emblem. You can put it on Echo. He's gonna be a lot tankier. He's gonna be a lot stronger. You might want to just stack items on him at this point, because he gets the same benefits as any. Plus, he's a higher cost unit. So he's generally stronger. So yeah, very strong options. Very solid. Next. Again, 3 healing augments. Same argument as the silver ones. just if you get Celestial Blessing, you might want to start considering cutting one of your healing augments for a damage. Sorry, one of your healing items on your carry for a damage option, or just run more healing. It's not really that bad. It's pretty good. It's pretty decent. The choice is yours. Like, it depends on what kind of game you're playing. Then we have Luden's Echo 2. Again, you're gonna cast a lot, might as well just deal extra damage. And Luden's 2 is actually pretty good. It can actually change some fights. Last but not least, Component Grab Bag. Now, compared to Item Grab Bag, this is a lot more useful, and I can see why you might want to pick this one up. The same reason why Pandora's Items is good for rerolling your components, in case you're not finding the required desired components that you needed. You can just pop this one, get 3 components. You're gonna have an edge over the enemy teams, because one item is fairly good advantage actually if put on the right unit. So yeah, it's nothing to scoff at, honestly. You'd rather have one of the higher augments in the gold section, but Component Grab Bag is just fine. Like, you'd rather have Component Grab Bag than Knife's Edge, most likely. Now, onto Prismatic Augments. There's no really game-breaking augments specifically for Spellslingers, but Prismatic Augments are generally just very strong. They can completely flip a game upside down. Again, Spellslinger Crown and Oxforce Crown, very solid. They give you an emblem. You can put it on a unit. You can get your trait active faster, yada yada. But as for every Prismatic Crown and or Soul, you get an item. I don't remember the Oxforce item specifically. It's a tank item, definitely. That's all I remember. But the Spellslinger Crown just gives you a tier. Not a Shojin, not a blue buff. A tier. Which is actually a very genius move from the dev team. Because in most AP comps, there's gonna be a Shojin user and a blue buff user. And you don't really wanna lock yourself on the wrong meta item, because sometimes it can be pretty bad. So just giving the tier can help you a lot. It can also help you get the static on TF, honestly. Pretty good in general. Now, next, we have the Radiant Relics. Radiant items on your carry are always pretty good. It's just gonna deal more damage. It's gonna be stronger. I don't know the exact tier list for Radiant items. Just you can figure that out on your own by trial and error. That's probably what I'm gonna do. Or you can look it up online. I might want to inform myself on that, actually, because I've lost track of the balancing of Radiant Relics. Now we have the only healing augment that's also prismatic, which is Celestial Blessing 3, and since it gives you 25% healing on your damage, I think it was, let me just check real quick. Yes, 25% Omnimap. So at this point, you really want to drop your healing item for a damage item. Because, yeah, Hand of Justice with double healing is gonna give you 30% instead of 25. Does it really matter? No, not that much. If you consider the fact that you're gonna deal more damage with a damage item rather than Hand of Justice, the healing is basically the same. But you're gonna be dealing more damage. So it's definitely a better option. Now, Golden Ticket is usually regarded to as a rerolling augment, but getting those extra 3, 4, 5, 6 free rolls on your roll down for your units can really make a difference sometimes. So yeah, it's gonna give you like a lot of, it's gonna save you a lot of gold. Level Up is also a pretty good pickup, because since half your board is probably gonna be 4 cost or 5 cost, you want to get to those higher levels faster. High-end shopping might be kind of similar, but since there's not too many 5 costs that you want to run, and you're also interested in 3 costs for this comp, In case it's offered early, you might want to be careful with that because you might lose up on some chances to 2-star your Annie or 2-star your Sona. It might happen later, it might not, you have no idea. I've seen high-end shopping do pretty poorly in recent days, stats-wise. So yeah, you can consider it, but I don't know. I've seen level up perform a little better on this comp. Now, last but not least, new recruit. Again, generally good augment. It's a free fawn. It's a free force of nature, or tactician's crown as it's called nowadays. These damn kids. Back in my day, Tools Pats would make force of nature. Back when we used the base skins for champions. I don't know what is happening. I'm losing my mind. I'm sorry. Now, onto hero augments. This can change heavily from game to game. Do not tunnel vision on some of these. Sometimes it's good to hard reroll for one of these. Sometimes it's good to just find Vitality of the Ox rather than Burning Spirit and go, yeah, I can deal with that. And just play into that. It's not a big deal. Because otherwise, you're gonna find yourself rolling past the Vitality of the Ox and not finding Burning Spirit and having to play Unrelenting Force with a Vi randomly in your team when you have perfect AP opener and good TF items and you don't have one augment. Straight up. Definitely not an experience I've been through. Anyway, so for hero augments, of course, both Janna augments are good, both the carry and the support one. Janna's is a little overtuned right now. She's dealing a little more damage than she's supposed to. So getting a Janna in your team is definitely going to spike your board pretty hard. So yeah, both augments are fine. Just like both augments are fine for TF, your whole board is not really going to benefit too much from Gear Shift because it gives you extra attack speed. But hey, more attack speed means more mana means more casting, and your AP units want to cast a lot. So yeah, it can work. It can work. And it also gives you a ATF for free. The carry augment, the one that gives you gold, is just generally pretty solid. It's an econ augment. It can help you stabilize at 8. It can help you fast 9. It's generally just good. Now for any augments, Burning Spirit is the only option. I don't like Paramaniac, whatever the name was. I don't remember. It's kind of bad. The carry augment is kind of bad right now. So you'd rather just get the extra AP on your whole board, triple when your units are low HP, and just bank on that. It's pretty solid right now. Now, next augment is the Nico support augment, which is easy being green, the one that gives you a free Shojin, and all units carrying a Shojin gain 35 AP. This can be a little more useful if you're running Nico as your main damage carry, because she's gonna run a Shojin and she's gonna also get the extra AP. Well, TF doesn't really care for mana items because he really just casts every 3 attacks and he has a lot of attack speed, so it's not really a problem. But in case you get it, it's pretty good. Even if you're not planning on main carrying your Nico, you can still pretty much just run double carry and just put the Shojin on Janna as well, or maybe on your Sona, depends. Last is a little bit of an underdog. It's a little bit of a underestimated augment that's been reworked from set 8, which is Vitality of the Ox, as I mentioned before. The way it works now is that after X amount of attacks, which is 10 attacks, once every 10 attacks, your units will heal 25% of their health, max health. Now, since TF is gonna attack a lot, as we've already said like 10 times this video, he's gonna heal pretty often. And as we already said earlier, more HP on your Oxforce units means more effective HP. So healing back units that have a lot of resistances is gonna be pretty inconvenient for your enemy. So yeah, in case you find it and you can't find Burning Spirit or you ran out of rolls, it's you can consider picking it up. You can try it out. All right, now moving into the last part of the video, let's talk comps. So the units you want to run throughout the early game, the mid game, and what your final board wants to look like. So starting off with the early game, your best opener is definitely 3 Gadgetines with a 4th unit that you can pick and choose. Like, there's a lot of options. There's Fiora for Ox Force and early game resistances, pretty decent. There's Lux for the extra damage. You can give her your items, or you can give them to Lulu in case you get a Lux too. I think you're gonna be better off just giving your items to her. You can run Aurel for an extra defender, which also synergizes with Lux level 5. Or you can run something like this with Fiora. Where is she? I lost track. Something like this, or maybe something like this, or maybe something like this. There's a lot of different options. It depends on what you can find and what you can use. In particular, I want to talk about a specific item carry for your future TF carry items. Do you remember Kai'Sa Recon reroll in set 8? Do you remember her items? Does this look vaguely familiar to you? Since she's running the same carry items as Twisted Fate will later in the game, and she's a Star Guardian, which synergizes pretty well with the rest of your board, I think you're gonna be just fine putting all your TF carry items on Kai'Sa. And actually, I think you can stabilize pretty hard with it, especially if you 2-star her. You don't even need quick draw, honestly. She's been buffed recently. She's a pretty damn solid item carry for you for your TF. And I've not seen her being played a lot. I think she can perform pretty well, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. If she's not really used often, there might be a reason, or people might just be sleeping on her. I just say she's worth a shot. She's worth trying out. Now, moving on from this board, you want to transition into the mid game. Possibly you want to run 4 Spellslingers. You might want to move out of Gadgetine in case you couldn't level up your units, but you'd be better off just leveling them up, keeping this kind of board in. You might just not play your L and play Alistair instead. It's an option. I don't think Alistair is that strong just for Ox Force, unless you 2-star him. Then he's probably just better. I think if you're running Fiora, oh, what? She's gone. If you're running Fiora, you might just want to play into Neela. No, stop. Neela. Okay, I want to play Neela just to get early duelist. Could help a little bit. I don't think it's the best board, but it's definitely an option because the front line just synergizes with each other, and you also keep Star Guardian for Kai'Sa, or you could just be running Morgana, which really synergizes with AP teams. These are not her best items, admittedly, but she can deal some pretty good damage regardless. Gauntlet is probably a pretty good slam on Morgana, for example. And she just generally helps your units kill a lot more. So yeah, there's a lot of different choices you can have in the late game. As we already said, the main units you want to be running are gonna be not Viego. Viego's not a core unit. We'll be talking about Viego later. Your main units are probably just gonna be these, right? Now, these are the first 6 units. You can add a couple more. For example, you can go into the 4 Spellslingers like this, or rather like this. It's a little better, or even better like this. With Windy Weather, you wanna put her on the back line to stack damage on Sona and TF, and also Viego. Where is Viego? I forgot about Viego. Sorry. There we go. That was better. Viego can actually deal some pretty good damage despite not being a Spellslinger, just by virtue of surviving a lot thanks to the Oxforce trait. And he's also a heart unit, so it's gonna help you stack a little more AP on all of your board. It's pretty good. You can just give him some extra healing items in case you got a BT, for example. You can just slam it on him. It's not gonna Twisted Fate, but Viego can use it just fine. Another option you can go for if you're liking a little bit of damage, you can cut Sona to play Nico. I wouldn't advise this unless you have the Nico support augment, the one that gives you a free Shojin, right? In that case, you might want to run her. Or in case you don't find your Twisted Fate, you can replace him with Nico and basically lean into more of a Spellslinger Star Guardian version. So you cut the Fiora, you cut the Viego, and you put in these two units. Right? This is also viable. I've gotten a couple dubs in High Diamond, which is basically top 2,000 in US servers right now. Might be a little more. I've been slacking off on the ranked, admittedly, but I've been keeping up with the meta. So this is also a good variation in case you don't find your TF. For level 9, you might just want to lean more into threat units. Just like, I guess Mordekaiser is decent just because he shreds enemy units. Fiddlesticks synergizes off of Ionic Spark that you're probably going to have on your team, and also off of Static Shift that you might want to have on your Twisted Fate or generally on one of your backline units. Like Syndra can really use the starting mana and attack speed. So Fiddlesticks is overall a good option. And Urgot is also decent, not the best in my opinion. Leona can work against heavy AP units. Heavy AP teams. Probably Leona would be a better option to put in immediately, just because Syndra can pull on the board all the Mordekaisers, all the Fiddlesticks, and all the Urgots you have on your bench. So you care a lot more about the trait being active rather than the unit that you have on board, because they're all gonna end up there unless Syndra gets annihilated completely by some hacker unit or just being sniped by Draven, I guess. So, I think that's it for today's video. I hope you learned something out of this. I hope it was useful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions and anything at all. Any feedback, since this is probably one of my very first videos making TFT guides. I hope you enjoyed the video, and that's it. Good luck on the climb. See ya.